There are so many scenes throughout the Harry Potter series that heavily rely on practical effects to bring that Hogwarts magic to life. I'm talking practical flying broomsticks, very dangerous remote-controlled trees, and an animatronic snake that may not look super realistic, but definitely gets the job done. The intense game of wizard's chess that Harry, Ron, and Hermione had to get through in order to get to the Sorcerer's Stone had super high stakes. Also, the fact that the film's production designer, Stuart Craig, actually created it is majorly impressive. They were moved around on the board by a radio control mechanism and the horse that explodes. Unfortunately, with Ron still on it, was set up with a compressed air device inside of it. The incredibly dangerous tree in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets that attacks Ron's flying car was created using a combination of practical effects and CGI. The actual tree was built on a hydraulic platform that could be controlled by the special effects team to simulate its movements. I'm really wondering how scared the cast was during all the takes of those scenes. Now let's talk about the giant serpent that Harry battles in the Chamber of Secrets. It was created using a combination of animatronics and puppetry. First, a life-sized model was built on set, which had a full team to control its movements and facial expressions. It was then mounted on a track system which allowed it to move through the set and interact with the actors. There was also just a separate head created and used for specific shots. The model was also covered in real snake skin, which was sourced from a snake farm. Of course, though, they had to finish it off with a bit of CGI to enhance and finalize its movement and texture in post-production. The triple-decker bus that transports Harry to the leaky cauldron in The Prisoner of Azkaban was built as a practical prop that could actually be driven. The bus was created using a real London Routemaster bus that was modified and painted purple for the film. The hippogriff that Harry and Hagrid encounter was actually created using a combination of practical effects and CGI. A life-sized animatronic model was built for the actors to interact with.
It could move, it just looked alive. You've just never seen anything like it.
While the more complex flying sequences were created using CGI. For all the wide shots where Buckbeak had to fly, a huge puppet was mounted on a crane and operated by a team, which allowed it to move through the air as well as interact with the actors. They even added feathers to the puppet by hand to make it look more realistic. The magical object that selects the Triwizard Champions was created as a practical prop that could actually shoot flames. The prop was built using a combination of metal and fiberglass, and required extensive safety precautions to make sure that the actors were safe throughout the scenes it was used for. I can't imagine how much of a liability shooting flames would be. The Room of Requirements first shows up in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. It's a magical space that appears only when someone really needs it. It was created as a practical set that could physically transform. The set was built with moving walls and objects that could be controlled by the special effects team to create the illusion of the room changing to suit the character's needs. The giant serpent that accompanies Lord Voldemort in Deathly Hallows Part 1 was created using a combination of practical effects and CGI. A life-sized animatronic model was built for the actors to interact with. It was operated by a full team of puppeteers. Then, in post-production, they replaced the snake's movement with CGI, which allowed the production team to capture the movement and behavior of a real snake, while still having the flexibility to make changes later. In the film's Quidditch scenes in Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the actors were actually suspended on harnesses and flown around the set to create the illusion of flying on broomsticks. This involved a complex rigging system and required everyone to undergo extensive training to perform the stunts safely. You would think it would be a ton of fun to ride broomsticks all day, but apparently the actors would often complain about being sore and often dread having to do these scenes because the brooms were so uncomfortable. I was not the slightest bit upset when Harry broke the no magic outside of Hogwarts rule to inflate his rude Aunt Marge up like a balloon. I was also quite impressed to find out that the scene was not done with CGI. Pam Ferris had to go through 4 different makeup stages and wore bodysuits pumped full of air. Her hands and legs had to be inflated separately. She was lifted with wires, and her movements were controlled by rigs that spun her around. So even though CGI has become increasingly prevalent in modern filmmaking, these practical effects help to ground the fantastical elements of the story in a sense of physical reality, making the world of Harry Potter feel all the more tangible and immersive. I truly never would have guessed Aunt Marge didn't need any help with CGI to float off into the abyss, or that Wizard's chess is more or less life-threatening. What were you most surprised to learn was fully practical?